Time the US suffers a lot debated overdosage plague, less than focus is paid to the reality how lot of the otherwise of the planet misses out on urgent analgesics such as morphia. On a frigid fall night in Washington, D.C., families huddled about CEO Donald Trump card as he floored the planet's print in the White's building. Several clutched photos of loose favorite ones. They had been guests to eyewitness a historical time in their struggle to try to provide which had happened to them would not hold event to thousands more than U.S. families. Opiate recipe analgesic outcome in 42 deaths each day in the nation. But time the U.S. tries to transactions in its above use of these strong medication, millions of human beings in some components of the planet are moribund in throw since they can't get conduct of them. I recall a wake-up of my mastectomy in Mexico town. The ache was so harsh how I couldn't breath, says Felicia Knoll, who had her leftward chest remote few year back. It took on 10 protocol up the physicians could go and regulate my ache medicine. It was not just the throw, but the terror of not needing to breath since of the ache. Fueled on by her expertise, and the expertise how millions of human beings never see their doctor come in ache ease, Felicia Knoll solved to attention her job on ache ease, and is now a prof and world public health political economist in the U.S. It unsecured and worrisome statistical, how 90% of all the morphia in the planet is consumption by the planet's richest 10%. It may not be remarkable how richer countries include superior accessing to these medication, but the world disparity of accessing to ache ease is especially remarkable, and though more than excess rather than the general disparity in health. Morphia is one sample of an opiate. As the behalf suggests, it comes of the opiate mac, love heroin. But time heroin is illicit. Some opioids are controlled and can go in the shape of verbal morphia, tablets, or injected ache ease. Died Eric Lohman, of Humane Rights Look, says not giver human beings accessing to these medication substantially amounts to torment. Lot patients we interviewee said us how they became suicide, how they requested their doctors for thing how would put them out of their poverty. In several cases, they in fact taken to perpetrate suicidal since they fair couldn't carry it over. The issue, he says, is how the presence of ache ease has been historically seen via the identical wedge as illicit drugs such as heroin. Opioids include been stretched in the as-called warfare on drugs reasoning, instead of creature seen of a care prospect, he says. To lot many decades, the discussions at the world standard about drugs were fully concentrated on illicit drugs, to the spot wherever the reality how these identical substances as well include essential care uses was fair fully off the radar gun, Mr. Lohman says. Else main problem is enabling care personnel in all countries know how medication such as morphia should be utilized, so they sense sure on giver them to patients. Mr. Lohman says students are frequently alerted on patients proper inclined to opioids, but are not ever learned how opioids can as well be and significant intervene to supervise ache. The and the hard world rhetorical include led to opiophobia, an unreasonable terror about the use of these medications, he says. As a outcome, Mr. Lohman says, lot human beings who should be distributing these medication end up thought of these strong drugs as type of and wrong. Human beings are frightened of departure to prison, of the additional study how they believe will go if you dictate these medication, he says. It is a penalty balance sheet to hit, enabling human beings who requirement these medication include accessing to them, but how they are not so readily accessible as to enable misuse. We can't let the ticker swinging of one excess to the sum, ex-US General Surgeon General Dr. Vivek Murthy says. In both of cases, if we are overprescribing opioids or sharply by-prescribing opioids, we are helping to affliction. Morphia is inexpensive and lightweight to do. One pill expenses on 2p. But time Dr. Murthy agrees lot countries about the planet desperate requirement superior accessing to ache ease, he warns the US expertise should act as a instructive story. Same plague in the US was created above many decades, but it was arriving at on a way how was laid in nice intentions, he says. On 30 year back, clinicians were forced to be more than anticipatory on treat ache, since it was recognized how lot patients were affliction. Dr. Murthy says pharmacy companies later began defiantly sell opiate medications. How took the shape of straight-to-consumer advertisements, vision doctors, frequently A on A, or take them out to events or to vacations to try to get them to dictate opiate medications, he says. It had a destructive impact. At low, one pharmacy business has later paid out hundreds of millions of dollars in fines. Uganda has pioneered a various attitude, and has more than or less than cut out narcotic companies of the whole trial. Wide seen as a guideline lighting while it comes to late-of-life thoroughness in Africa, the nation makes its own fluid morphia and distributes it complementary of accusation to by the government hospitals, cut out same medium man. Technicians do morphia fluid with a easy mix of morphia dust, preserving agent and meal color, that shows the various strengths. It expenses on 7-1p for a 1 week's cost of 8 E's for one patient. Same benefit in the dust is how you are capable to action and monitoring, he says Dr. Emmanuel Uyerika, who heads up the African Palliation Thoroughness Associate. One day he's recovered in fluid, the hazard of possessing it offended or modified in thing else is considerably diminished. Because tablets can be crushed or chewed to rate up their impact, how isn't the instance in fluid morphia? While I attended Uganda a few years back, I saw at first brush the distinction enlarged accessing to palliation thoroughness, consisting AEs, done to patients and their families. But Uganda yet relating just on 20% of patient requirement. And some African countries delivery far less than morphia to their populations. He's not fair on availability and cost. He's as well on public health infrastructure facilities in general, and the degree to that palliation thoroughness and AEs for lifetime limiting illnesses is recognized and prioritized during it. The U.S. continues to grip in the destructive effects of its above prescription issue. But sarcastically he's the by use, the absence of ease of ache, how affects more than human beings about the ball.